record, and I want to welcome on Laura Van Eperen and Hillary Turner from Van Eperen. Let's get to know them a little bit better, and then we'll jump into the topic today. But first off, Laura and Hillary, welcome. I want to make sure, unmute yourselves. There you go.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. This is the 2020 thing. I can't hear you. Unmute yourself. You know, that's what we're all saying on these calls. But so first off, Laura, I've been familiar with your agency for many years because you've got several clients in the senior space. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started your agency.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate being here. We were founded about 16 years ago, and I founded my own firm just because I wanted to really connect and deliver value to clients. I'd worked in bigger agencies. So we've been Maryland strong for 16 years. I started my career in journalism. So I started our firm as a PR shop, and we've evolved into a full-scale, full-service marketing communications firm. So I feel like our differentiator is that we bring the best of the PR and the marketing and the advertising.
Oh, that's great. And then Hillary, you're at Van Eperen. What is your role in the organization?
Hi, everyone, and happy Friday. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much, Steve. Yes, I've been with Van Eperen as a vice president for nearly 5 years now. I work with some of our senior living clients, and my career actually started not in the agency world. I actually started in the association world, focused on health and science and wellness. And so I really also understand that world as well, and then move later on into my career into agency life. So a little bit of the best of both worlds in regards to that.
Awesome. No, well, great to have you guys. And one of the things, you know, I work with so many companies, and on a daily basis, I'm, you know, presented with marketing challenges, and the audience is probably sick of hearing my sort of philosophy on marketing and things like that. So I'm really glad that you guys are here to share some perspective at this time of year, especially because we're all thinking about 2021, and it's not business as usual anymore, guys. We've got to think out the side of the box, and you've got to sort of absorb perspectives from multiple different sources to sort of craft what's going to work for your organization. And I'm also glad that we've got an agency like Van Eperen, because I know we've got a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs in the audience that, you know, you might not be at the stage where you are ready to hire a full service agency, but if you can glean some good information from Hillary and Laura today, we all want to, I want my whole audience to be in a position where they're ready to sort of hand over their marketing responsibilities to shop or expert consultant, what have you. And with that, the other reason why I'm delighted to have Van Eperen is because you guys have experience in senior living. One of the speed bumps that I've seen with my clients a lot of times is that they'll hire an agency, maybe it's a friend of a brother-in-law or what have you, that might be experts in marketing, but have no experience in senior living. And as we realize, language and the way we communicate in this world is so important. And that's where I really always recommend going with a shop that's got some other client experience in this world. It makes a world of difference. So with that, I'm going to remind the audience to type in questions and comments frequently. Let's make this an interactive discussion today on overall marketing in our segment. And I'm going to drop off the screen here, but if something comes up, if a relevant question comes up, I may break in, guys, and share that with you. So Laura, if you want to share your screen, if not, I've got your PowerPoint. I've got access to it.
Okay, is this up,
Yep,
Steve? Is the deck
that's
up? Okay.
awesome. That looks
Okay.
good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Steve, for that overview, and appreciate you mentioning our experience in the senior living sector. And the reason we really wanted to join this conversation with Steve and for all of you is to help you plan for 21. And again, if you can glean one insight to better prepare you for navigating through some of the challenges next year, that's what this is about. It's truly about helping you thrive. We're definitely big believers in giving back to the community and helping arm you with additional information. Just a real quick background on us. You know, I mentioned we were been in business in about 16 years. And we really, I think one of our differentiators is, you know, we really work with our clients to make sure that they have success. So we're very strategic and tactical and focused on what works for you as an entity. No one size fits all in our world. Even though we work in the senior living sector, we work in others as well. So every client is an individual. So we approach you that way. So everything we do is custom and compelling communications. These are just the service areas we provide. I mentioned earlier, public relations is at the core of what we do. So everything we do really disseminates from what are the facts that we can share, and then how do we position them in a way that are going to differentiate you to stand out in amongst the competition. And so we obviously integrate all that information we pull together on your organization and put it in the best channels that are going to get you the best visibility so that we reach your goals. And those are digital. They can be creative assets, you know. So these are just obviously the services we provide in a marketing communications agency. So again, today, the conversation, we're going to give you an army with 5 steps for success in 2021, knowing that, you know, these are tried and true marketing steps, but we also fully understand more than ever, you need to be flexible, right? The news of the day as it relates to COVID, which touches our industry, is changing by the hour. So step 1 is really to evaluate where you are at as an organization. Where's your leadership at as an organization? Knowing that we are you know, 9 months into this now, and it's going to be another 6 months, maybe 8-10 months before folks who opt into getting vaccinations are doing so, and the world starts to become whatever the new normal will become. So how do you move forward? It really starts with evaluating where you're at and taking that temperature check, frankly, of your organization and your leadership as it relates to decisions about marketing. So you, perhaps if you're the marketing director, maybe more so out front than your CEO. So how do you find that middle ground? And we obviously help you strike that middle ground or the right ground based on what's right for you as an organization as it relates to the tone and the services you provide or the products you provide. So we kind of take that swath perspective and we give you that outsider's perspective that also is different than what you may be thinking internally.
Laura, and just to add on to what you were saying, and doing an assessment is really important. I think if we look back 12 months ago, you know, as people may be putting the final touches on their marketing plans, you know, they probably didn't have a category for a global pandemic, and certainly something that would have such, you know, especially in this space, such a devastating impact in regards, and, you know, kind of if you go back to the news, that's where things really, you saw that rise in Washington State, in Kirkland. So I think, like Laura was saying, if any time showed us being flexible and adjusting your plans and even your budgets, because things may have shifted given everything that went on this year. But so it's okay, you know, we would have probably recommended that you continue on with your marketing efforts, even if they had to, you know, scale back a bit. But if you didn't and you took a pause, this is a good time to just kind of take that check. What have you done? If you took a pause, where do you want to go? How do you want to take what you maybe learned in 2020 and then move on to things in 2021? How can you be creative by looking at different opportunities, but also being very sensitive to the topic as well? I think it is striking that balance, and you can start small with this. You don't have to feel like you have to tackle everything. So doing this, kind of looking at what you've done, where do you want to go? This is a really good time to do that if you haven't started that already.
So step 2, really evaluating what have you been doing and do we want to build on them? Are we still in, to a certain extent, the blocking and tackling mode with crisis communication, so to speak? How out front do we want to get? What are the best channels we're using? And again, the news of the day really comes into focus with this step. So these are some of the current assets you're probably using. Do you also for 21 want to explore integrating or optimizing more new ones or dusting some off? Your last blog may have been posted in February. So kind of that looking holistically at what are your current assets and what's the appropriate way to elevate them or to re-engage them in 2020, knowing that I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel with COVID now, but we still, like Hillary is saying, need to be very sensitive about how we communicate with our messages and how we're using these different assets. So evaluating, your best assets, what's been working for you, the last 3 months, say. And actually, when I think about 2021, I also really think it's imperative that we look at it kind of from a phased or quarterly approach. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, I don't know that we want to bite off a 12-month plan for next year. So really taking it in a phased approach, and that may be something that internally is far more digestible, knowing that we're constantly evaluating things, but that it's going to kind of be a slow development and unfolding next year. Again, here are just a few more assets that you may have had success with this year. And obviously there are a lot of resources we use, but where do you put your energy, right? Maybe this year, you dialed back engaging with kind of that news media. And Hillary, maybe you want to jump in here a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this goes back to when you're reviewing your assets and you're looking at what you want to tackle for next year, it is a good chance as you're assessing, like, not only the platforms and these tactics like newsletters and news media, also may be a good time to check in on your messaging and your organization's voice. Did it evolve in 2020? Did you add any proof points or shifts in messaging based on how you address certain situations that happen in your own community or with your organization that you want to pull through in 2021, because maybe it really highlighted how your entire staff came together. That may be messaging that you want to make sure that you're weaving in and is part of your organization's story going forward. Also, I think it's really interesting, as we're on the Zoom and, as Steve said, you're muted, you're unmuted. I think with all of this, I think there are some benefits to this new virtual world. And as people kind of took their live events and shifted them to virtual, as I think everyone's excited to get back in person, are there any kind of best practices or things that happen in this virtual event world that you can infuse in an in-person event? Capture a bigger audience because people are more comfortable with logging into a meeting or an event, even if they're not in that city. So I think it's also not just discarding, even though everyone's going to be so happy to be in person, are there things you get that really great speaker that maybe is in California, because everyone's a little more comfortable or familiar with using, and tapping into these things virtually. So hybrid events, I think, is something that we're going to see a bit of an evolution for in 2021 and even going forward from there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some good that's coming out of COVID. And I think that, everybody adapting to more digital and being more open to events like this, it's wonderful, because I think in the future, we'll be able to engage with people where they're comfortable, right? Introverts may not want to come to an open house or a career fair. They may want to start the process by just getting a feel for your organization online. So I think there's definitely an upside to these challenging times, and hopefully future additional engagement is one of them. So this may be one of the most important steps as you're thinking about your 2021 marketing. Really prioritizing and putting your resources in the right place. Like all clients, I think, that we work with these days have many priorities. Leadership always has the priority of the day, right? So how do you evaluate what some of those short and long-term priorities, or we sometimes package these up into campaigns or initiatives. But how do you, evaluate all of them and then decide what should come to the top, what should float to the top? And again, taking maybe a phased approach in 2021 is the best way to do that. So knowing that we really still are going to be, in this lockdown mode through January, February, potentially March, given the colder months, knowing that, the rates are still high, under that umbrella, what are the things that we can and should prioritize? So these are just some of the campaigns, and HR recruitment, as we know, is a significant topic in senior living. Staffing shortages certainly have been significant this year. And from an internal perspective, remembering and appreciating, the current staff that are working so hard and are, their families are really having to compromise life at a different level than some of us may be experiencing, because they're having to quarantine. They may be staying in hotels to do their job every day. So really, how do we motivate, reinvigorate, thank them? So internal campaigns could be a priority for you. This is the year end. If recruitment from, say, a resident perspective, if you're a life plan community, this is also, this time of year, traditionally, we'd be doing a big push. But maybe this shifts into the second or third quarter of next year. I mean, so, there are things to just think through, and we just understand and empathize, and, there are lots of marketing topics you can cover here. Maybe you're going to be launching a new division next year, but thinking them through, prioritizing, sticking the landing with appropriate messaging based on when you may be implementing these programs is just so important. So I don't know, Hillary, if there are other points you want to touch on here, but certainly laying the groundwork and fully prioritizing and evaluating timing is, I think, the takeaway from this section.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if you're looking at like life plan communities, lead gen, of course, is always, critical and tied to all of your marketing efforts. It's, what maybe was originally 12 to 18 month, time period or longer, is that stretched longer now because people are more apprehensive to, move in? Or on the flip side, and things are showing, and some studies are showing, that people are wanting maybe to move in because they feel that it's a more secure setting. So, maybe your personas for your audience may have shifted a little bit. It's good to take a look at those. And for also these short and long-term campaigns, also really knowing who your audience is. and do you need to make adjustments based on that, and prioritizing them as well. Go back to where we started in the upfront, you can start small. I don't think you have to look at this slide and go, you know what, these all look great. We're going to do all of these. I think it's prioritizing, as Laura said, thinking through what is really going to give that return. What are your priority audiences? Do you have to update your messaging and outreach efforts to kind of align with any changes that happen in 2020 and then shifting into 2021? So
I wanted to jump in on your comment about online meetings. Janina from Grand Oaks has made a comment that we've had better attendance for our Grand Oaks quarterly family forums virtually than we ever had with a live meeting. And that was included a chef prepared meal. I think this moving to the virtual world, there are some types of meetings now that may never go back to live meetings because it's so convenient to connect people together virtually. So thanks for that comment, Janina. And then the other thing that I wanted to throw out is that because there is such a human resources and hiring challenge, sometimes I've seen a few folks out there who've sort of combined their consumer campaign with like a tagline that might say something like, "And we are hiring too," or vice versa.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead, Laura.
No, I think, striking that right balance of messaging, and we're going to talk, we show one simple client example at the end of this presentation, but there's never been a better time if you are a mission-driven person to join the healthcare field. As challenging as it is rewarding as well. So, it's kind of striking that right balance of the messaging that you're comfortable with as it relates to recruitment. But I think you can really connect with people who maybe aren't satisfied in their current career or, early career folks to get them to come work within your organization.
Yeah, I think we've seen in the news a lot of the students who are graduating, they're expediting all of that so we can really get them, like, quote unquote, on the ground to start working. And to go back, I appreciate the comment as well about, having, better attendance at the, family events. I can completely see that, given the fact of, adult children are such a key audience, especially if we're talking about in kind of moving into a CCRC or, retirement community or assisted living facility, any number of those loved ones or adult children, they may not live right around the corner and couldn't come to an in-person event. So maybe that's going back to, as we talked about, these hybrids. So looking at how do you set the stage for events in the future that can kind of have a place around the table for everyone who may be part of this decision-making process. So appreciate that comment as well.
Great. So we are going to move on to step 4, to setting yourself up for marketing success in 2021. So building it the right way, right? Knowing what we know now. So we have, again, another 5 steps here. It's all about 5 today. So Hillary, I'm going to turn this one over to you to kind of walk folks through the process, to help you kind of as well plan ahead.
Right. And these, we wanted to kind of keep these top line here, but just if you can think of these as questions to ask, whether or not you're looking at, a short-term initiative or a full-blown 12-month campaign. I think you really want to start with, asking the question, what are you really trying to accomplish? And is it leadership just saying, well, we need to do this? Okay, well, let's take a pause and ask the question, what are we trying to accomplish here? and really kind of identify, the competition, what are the challenges, and then also what are the opportunities. Think through what your budget and timeline would be. And do you need any outside support to help with these strategies or even the tactics once you get to the rollout stage? You also really want to make sure is identifying, the decision maker here. And that goes to the next one, which is who you're talking to. Who's the audience? Are there multiple audiences? And if so, we would encourage you to really prioritize them. Trying to talk to everybody at once can be overwhelming, and there are nuances there that in your messaging. Also, what do you want them to think and feel? I think this goes back to the emotion part of this that we were talking about before. Decision making for people is not only just kind of cut and dry, like, or it's not as easy as like, I'm gonna, subscribe to this magazine. This is, especially if you're looking to moving into a CCRC life plan community, there's a lot of them. Excuse me. I'm not getting emotional. I just got a little cough.
Well, I can jump in to give you a break if you wanted.
Sorry.
We definitely, these are the basics of developing a campaign,
Yeah.
but you really want to think through, like Hillary's saying, how to differentiate yourself and really focus in on those target audiences that are going to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, sorry about that. It sounded like I was getting emotional, but and then how do you reach them? Where are they? Where do they live online? Where do they live? Where do they get their information? And then what do you want them to do? Sorry.
Yeah, and so I'll jump in one more time. When it comes to recruiting employees and staff, if that's a priority for you, there are lots of tactics to consider. I recall when we worked with a big healthcare system in the region years ago, one of their end goals obviously was to recruit talent, healthcare talent. And so they engaged with us to develop an employer of choice program. So, best places to work, there are many of these awards types of programs that shine the light on your organization. And they have some of them have a significant employee engagement component. So these are actual initiatives or campaigns, as I would call them, if you work within a larger organization, even if you work within an organization that employs 500 people, motivating a healthcare workforce to chime in on surveys that are required as part of those awards is a significant endeavor. So we would actually have on-site events, in break rooms, in cafeterias, with iPads, so that folks could take that survey, because we know the healthcare community isn't on social media the way the traditional consumer is. Reaching them can be very challenging, much less getting them to engage outside of their 8-hour shift or 12-hour shift. So again, like thinking about campaigns, it goes a lot deeper, but these are the basic steps that we outline on this slide for you. And the last step, this is, okay, so you've prioritized a campaign, you've built it, you deploy it, and here is step 5. You got to make sure it's working. You can't just get it and forget it. This is like any type of marketing campaign. We all wish, right, we could just push a magic button. Hey, it's off and running. We're getting the results. We're achieving our goals. Oh, if it were only that simple, we wouldn't really probably have a marketing director role in the world. So we want to just talk you through, a couple of things here to make sure that you're getting ROI.
Yeah, and you also want to make sure that you don't want to just set it and forget it. You've done so much work and efforts to get a campaign or an initiative out the door and launched. Sometimes you're like, okay, whew, let's move on. And a lot of times let's move on. There's probably a ton of things that you're also balancing and trying to prioritize, but it's really important to track this and to, especially if you're kind of doing this in the digital world, you want to optimize, you want to see what's working, what's not working, what messages you may need to tweak, what even graphics, visuals, where are you seeing engagement? And if you are seeing engagement, you also want to engage with that. If you're doing a, Facebook campaign, and you are getting comments and things like that, you just really want to make sure that your organization is responding, and not setting it and then forgetting it there as well. So I think that's part of your planning process too, is kind of thinking where you're going to track and monitor your progress and make adjustments accordingly.
So we wanted to share just a couple of visuals with you about and ideas about how, and this is a recruitment campaign with the U.S. Public Health Service. We didn't, for proprietary reasons, we didn't want to pull in sample work from our current clients in the market. So this, they're actually headquartered, USPHS is headquartered here in the region. And Hillary, you can even jump in and talk a little bit about this, please.
Yeah, so we worked with a couple of other groups on this, and this was, as Laura said, a recruitment campaign for the Public Health Service to, really focus on different, priority, industries. So physicians, nurse practitioners, dentists, veterinarians, to consider joining the Commission Corps and really focused on a career in public service. It just happened that public health service or public health with the pandemic was, I think, being discussed more so this year than, I don't know, ever before. I don't have data points on that. So it really ended up coming at a time where people who are really these frontline workers and flagging to them that there's an opportunities for a public health service career as a nurse practitioner, as a physician, as a dentist. So we did this with stories and interviews that happened with commissioned officers to really let them know their perspective. And so this was a digital campaign that was text ads on Google, also video in-stream ads, also on LinkedIn, because this is a recruitment campaign, and also on Facebook. It ran for, about 6 weeks, but had really great engagement and tracking our goals and optimizing during that time to really make sure we are reaching the audience. But it really did, if you can look at the pictures and the graphics, it's also, you've got that compelling content with storytellers who are really talking about their own story, and with graphics that would, kind of capture attention. So it had an overall look and feel that tied in to a broader campaign. So this is just, as Laura said, just one example of how to really think through who you're trying to reach, combine this really engaging content with graphic or video assets to reach your audience. So a little bit of like a very specific call to action, but then also just general brand awareness as well.
And again, it's that winning over hearts and minds, right? If we can develop messages that you get pulled through with amazing creative, I mean, these images show you, this is a career because you have a heart, for serving others. That was a big differentiator for this. And again, it's a different calling because you're going to, your job is going to take you around the country and around the world. You're going to be running to the crisis. So again, hopefully you glean a little bit from this, even though these are static images. We found, and the results showed that, the compelling image really helped draw folks in, and they're mission-based folks. It's a public service role. So, we had good information on who their ideal recruits are. And so we build campaigns and different
Well,
things around that.
um, also, one of the things in our field in senior living, one of the benefits of using images is that you don't have to use some of the words that might turn people off because of the age-related stigma. So you don't necessarily need to say seniors or aging or anything like that. You're conveying a message through an image.
Right.
This is great, guys. And we got a few questions that have been coming in through chat. So yeah, let's wrap up, and then I encourage everybody to be thinking about different marketing challenges that you may be faced with, and let's throw them out there for discussion.
Yep. So this slide just summarizes the 5 steps, really taking the temperature where your organization is at, evaluating your assets, prioritizing where to go in 21, building around those priorities. And again, once you pull the trigger on deploying, any type of marketing communications, obviously need to be monitoring and optimizing as it's running. So yeah, we welcome questions and look forward to them.
Great. Well, the more minds on this problem, the better, because it's not an easy one. And I know we've got several people in the audience that are on the leadership teams of villages. But Lori Pross asks, do you have any thoughts about how villages should go about trying to increase their membership? And for those of you in the audience that might not be 100% familiar with villages, the village movement was started about 20 years ago up in Boston, but they are sort of grassroots efforts where community members come together to support aging in place in the community. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on this, or this is a great opportunity for audience participation. If there's any ideas that anybody in the audience would like to share on that challenge, that would be great.
Sorry, what's the specific question again, Steve?
Oh, just any thoughts on how villages might market themselves. And I think, sort of going back to your program, a lot of that what your program illustrates and what it reminds everybody is that there's no secret bullet for marketing. There's no sort, and this is where a lot of us end up getting frustrated. Is it's sort of like, okay, I'm just going to do a Facebook ad, but there's no, what Laura and Hillary have sort of spelled out is sort of understanding, what's the goal of this campaign? What is the platform? What is your budget? Sort of walking through the steps and then pulling the trigger is oftentimes the best thing. But
yeah, I can jump in. It's hard to give exact, things of how to increase your membership without having, a lot of background on it, but because I'm not as, familiar with that. But if you're saying the villages are kind of all over, maybe the country, you may want to take a regional or more local approach, because what may work in one area, may not work in another. So I would think, and this, I'm saying this without having a lot of background on it, but I think that we didn't really get into that, but in our example there, that campaign that we did was across the country in different regions and was adjusted accordingly. So I think that might be something to also consider, that almost consider your region or that local area as kind of another audience, and how do you then kind of really hone in there, and maybe that's a consideration as well.
And I think, I think a broad message is find the right community that suits you. Which applies to, aging in place, communities like the villages, or even senior, living communities, life plan communities. That's a good, like, you got to find the right fit for you, for your lifestyle today, right? You want to find the people that you're going to most enjoy being with. You want to find the right environment that meets your needs today, and or if you want to plan for 10 years down the road. So, I would position it that way generally. And then you bring in spokespeople that best articulate the lifestyle that you offer at the villages.
Yeah. And a follow-up question from an attendee was talking about how they're in a life plan community. And when somebody is not ready to make the move to their life plan community, how they recommend the villages as an alternative, because that person is right now aging in place. And so this really speaks to collaboration, the value of collaboration amongst us all in this community of senior living, how much we can help each other. It's and just because somebody isn't a prospect for you right now, it doesn't mean that you can't nurture that relationship by referring them to something like the villages.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just being a
Uh,
resource, right, Steve? I mean, I think we're all in this because we care about people. So being a resource so that somebody makes the best choice. We don't want folks to make choices that they're unhappy with, right? I mean, nobody is a
mhm.
winner in the end then. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's why
And
convenience is such a great way to do that.
yeah, um, this again is another great question that I know is probably on the minds of everybody in the audience, and it would be great to have any insight that you guys can add to it. And it's from Ada Horsfall from Life Matters, and she says, "What tips would you offer on how to market care management services to hospitals, nursing homes, and rehab centers?" So, um, you know, developing strategic marketing efforts that go out to specific types of referral sources. And what's great is Ada references uh, two of them, hospitals and nursing home and rehab centers. Interested on your guys' thoughts, but one thing that I would share with Ada and the audience that's one really good cost-effective thing that you can do is um, create customized marketing material for that specific referral audience. So you might have a general brochure for your company that goes to all audiences, family members, referral sources, what have you. But imagine if you just did a version and did a short print run and it said, hospitals trust Shady Acres Assisted Living because, um, that's been a result producing strategy with some folks out there. But any thoughts, Laura and Hillary?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tailoring your messaging makes a ton of sense. And I don't think, again, one size doesn't fit all. I think it is a combination of tactics to take, brochures, in-person events where you're continuing to relationship build with those referral sources. Steve, you convene a lot of those luncheons and conversations in normal times. But again, yeah, I 100% agree with you. A custom approach is the best way to do that.
You
Yeah,
know,
and part of that too, I think, can be beyond just kind of marketing about I think your message is good, Steve, that because you're talking about trust and everything like that, but what service or what kind of from an educational standpoint could be useful for those audiences. So even taking it a step further and going beyond, like, it's almost kind of what can you do for them, or what educational services or materials that the hospitals for their staff or whoever are trying to reach their hospital administrators. What are their pain points? What information would be helpful to them? And then also think of your audience too. How do they receive? So what type of platform? Would it be a brochure, or because of the hours they work, would it be better to have something, really early in the morning, like an educational webinar? I think it's I think it depends on who you're trying to reach, and those referral sources, but completely agree with Steve and Laura on tailoring your messaging for these audience, I think is really important.
You know, one budget and marketing benefit that's occurred with COVID is that, you know, our printing of brochures has been reduced, and printing of things. I mean, we can certainly continue mailing them, but even before COVID hit, it was amazing to see how many of us were designing our flyers and brochures in and emailing them out in PDF format more than we are mailing them out in print format. And just, you know, sort of speaking to design and sort of having multifunction to the pieces that we're creating for our programs.
Mhm. Well, I think too, when you talk about design, Steve, I think we in particular want to make sure that, again, if it's more on like a resident recruitment side, you know, like that imagery really matches the lifestyle that you deliver on, and that, you know, aging Americans are looking to live. I mean, this is not right. We all know very well. This is not our grandparents' generation of housing and living, right? Like, so once we come out of COVID, I think just striking that right balance of attracting, using imagery that completely embraces and is on target with what you're offering, which what people are craving in today's life.
Yeah, I think your brand goes beyond just, you know, the words that you're saying. You know, that emotion can come out in the words, but your brand also needs to be reflective in your creative pieces, your graphics as well. I mean, you want people to kind of be able to look at something and get, as Laura said, understand like what you're offering, and be true to who your organization is. Do that through the words and also visually.
Great. We're getting close to wrapping up, and I always like to say, once I say that, you know, then, you know, a few more questions come in, but as we sort of get towards the top of the hour, I want to thank you both for sharing some resources, giving everybody some things to think about. But I think, you know, the thing that your presentation reminds me of more than anything is how planning is really important. It's really, especially now more than ever, is really just sitting down, blocking off some time, and really giving some thought to, you know, who is my customer? What am I trying to accomplish? And then with those tools, you can sort of, it's much easier to map out a strategy. And Laura, I think, you know, we're so used to sort of mapping out our year in advance. I like how you sort of phrased that, because the world is changing on a daily basis now. You know, it's maybe sort of sketching out in pencil a plan for the year, but really revisiting that on a monthly and quarterly basis as things change. And
yeah, if anything we've learned this year, general messaging doesn't apply, right? You have to be nimble, you have to be flexible, you have to be ready and capable of updating. And I think a lot of people this year were just caught off guard, right? I mean, and we're stuck in mud for a while. So hopefully most folks have moved past that, and you have the resources in place now where you've had some success, or frankly, even this year. I think if you just hold the line on where things are at and then come out of the gates next year, maybe it's June of next year, right? I mean, we're all hoping for summer of next year. You know, so yeah, just yeah, appreciate the opportunity, and hopes that, you know, everybody gleaned at least something that you can use next year. And you know, we're a resource just like you, Steve. You know, we are always happy to just you know, talk through ideas if it's helpful to anybody, small practitioners. You know, we want to be a resource.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just I'll send out the recording and I'll share your contact info. And I recommend that if talk to as many people. Like you've got to throw a bunch of ideas against the wall. Some of this stuff is going to stick. What I was, as you said something that came to mind to me. I've been really impressed with many people in the audience. I'm on most of your Facebook pages, so I see some of the posts that you guys post. And from a marketing perspective, I've seen some really successful starts of campaigns just by accident, by just sort of sharing a story of what you're doing at your community on Facebook and seeing the response that generated in the community. And those are little nuggets that could be the start of a really targeted, result producing, meaningful campaign. But having somebody like Van Eperen help you navigate that is really important.
Yeah, we have a lot of natural built-in storytellers within our organization, and tapping into their, their interests and abilities to help amplify your story is always a good, fallback. So yeah, agreed.
Great. All right. Well, I'm excited that we're at the top of the hour because my voice needs a break. I'm hoping Monday I'm going to feel a lot better. But I want to thank you guys again. And we'll keep this marketing masterminds ball rolling in 2021. We'll try to do something once a month. Sorry that it took a while. But Laura, thanks for reaching out to me and getting us back on track on having these marketing discussions.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate everybody's time today.
Okay. See you guys.